Welcome to the Building Blocks of Reading Phonemic Awareness course video introduction for parents. The purpose of this video is to list the phonemic awareness skills and knowledge that students need to have and how phonemic awareness equips students to be ready to learn to read. I'm going to put some notes on these slides, but these notes and a more extensive article based on this topic will be included in the PDF that accompanies this video, so there's no need to take notes. While the list of possible phonemic awareness skills that could be taught is extensive, research has shown that most pre-reading skills have no measurable impact on students' subsequent reading success. But research has also shown that there are some things that are foundational to reading success, and students who lack these foundations are virtually guaranteed to fail. So it's important students are trained in these basic skills and taught this essential knowledge in the very early stages of learning to read. The skills students must have in order to be ready to learn to read are the ability to hear at least most of the sounds in English, and the ability to say at least most of the sounds. If your child has hearing or speech difficulties, there are ways to compensate for these deficits so that her literacy skills are similar to that of her hearing peers. I recommend the cued speech system. The information is freely available. Just search Google. I've put a note in the PDF. Don't be disturbed if your child lacks the hearing and saying skills. If he can speak, he had this skill as a baby, and it just needs to be reactivated. It can take a few minutes of work a day for a week or two for the brain to catch on that reactivation is what you're wanting. Children lose this skill because once they can say the sounds properly, their brains switch over to concentrating on the meaning of words, and their ability to hear individual sounds fades away from lack of use. To be ready to learn to read, students must know when we speak, we make sounds. We use a lot of different sounds in English. Every word we speak is made up of one or more of these sounds. Saying different sounds in different orders makes all our words. When people first decided to read and write, they drew a picture for each thing they wanted to write about. Later on, when they ended up with so many pictures that they couldn't remember what they all meant, they changed to drawing a picture for each sound they said. For example, instead of drawing a camel when they wanted to write about a camel, they drew a camel to mean sound k at the beginning of camel. Then they drew a different picture for the next sound, and so on. We still read and write using a picture for each sound, but our pictures are much easier to read and write. When we see a written word, we start at the left side, say the sound for the first picture, say the sound for the next picture, and so on to the end of the word. Then we say all the sounds in that word close together, so we can hear the word those sounds make and know what the word is. In my courses, we often do mini history lessons where I explain to students why English works the way it does, or why a certain word was written this way. This knight's helmet lets students know we're going to do a history lesson. The first history lesson explains that a long time ago, people in charge of storage in a village needed to remember who owned what was in the storage hut. So they drew a picture of each person who wanted to store stuff, and next to the person's picture, they drew a picture of what that person was storing. As people discovered how useful writing was, they wanted to write about more and more things. So they kept inventing pictures, until there were so many pictures that people had trouble remembering what each of them meant. This is what their pictures looked like back then. Then I explain how some very clever people worked out that it would be better to switch from using a different picture for each thing they wanted to write about, to using a picture for each sound they spoke. Because there were hundreds of things they wanted to write about, but they only made about 40 or 50 different sounds when they spoke. Doing things this way would mean that they didn't have to learn and remember hundreds of different signs. Instead, they'd learn a picture for each of the 40 or 50 sounds they spoke, sound out each word and draw a picture for each sound in that word in the order in which it was spoken. In order to show students how that worked, I teach them some pictures, teach them a name for each picture, and help them notice the first sound in the name for the picture. Then I teach them that when they see the picture, they should say the first sound in the picture's name. For example, A in apple, E in egg, M in mountains, N in necklace, R in raw, and S in snake. Then students learn that by saying the first sounds for each of the pictures close together, they can sound out words. For example, for this slide, students say the sounds represented by each picture. R, A, N. Then I say R, A, N, so they can check they got the sounds right. Then I show the students how to sound out and blend the word by saying R, A, N, ran. We read a number of other words like this. By the time students have done a few of the words written with pictures, they've grasped the idea upon which written English is based. See the picture for the sound. Say the sound. Blend the sounds together and say the word. Then students learn that we still read and write by using a picture for each sound, but our pictures are much easier to read and write. By the end of this phonemic awareness course, students know that the words we speak are made up of sounds, can hear most, if not all, of the sounds in English, can say most, if not all, of the sounds in English, and can sound out and blend 2 and 3 sound words. So that means they're ready to learn letters and learn to read. Please don't be tempted to skip this stage of learning to read because you think that spending more time learning letters and practicing reading would be more beneficial. It won't. Students who have difficulty learning to read are not suffering from a lack of time spent on reading. They've often spent years learning letters and practicing reading without making significant progress. Rather than suffering from lack of reading, they're suffering from lack of the skills and knowledge of how the sounds work in reading. That's phonemic awareness. And once they have good phonemic awareness, that on its own isn't enough. They must then be taught how the individual sounds are written. That's phonics. The awareness of sounds and how to represent the sounds in writing both need to be taught. And we need to be aware that while learning to speak is a natural process, learning to read is not. Students can't make sense of these things on their own. Reading needs to be taught in a way that makes sense, or students won't be able to understand how it works. If you supply your child with the knowledge necessary to understand how reading works, he will find it easy to learn to read, because he'll understand why we use letters the way we do. And everyone finds it much easier to learn and understand something that makes sense. English almost always makes sense, so we should teach it in a way that makes sense, instead of pretending that all English words are bizarre and have to be learnt individually. Even the really weird word, yacht, makes sense when you understand why it was originally written that way. A little bit of history about weird words helps them make more sense, and that's usually enough to make them easy to remember. Reading readiness is not a state children reach through magic. It's the stage they reach when they are equipped with the basic knowledge needed to learn to read. Children of school age can accumulate this knowledge very rapidly, if they're taught it. And adults can lack this knowledge because no one ever explained it clearly to them. This 2.5-hour phonemic awareness course equips students with the skills and knowledge necessary to be ready to learn to read successfully. The course consists of 12 streaming videos, each between 7 and 15 minutes in length. Some students might need to repeat a few videos in order to learn the work on them, so it might take a bit longer for those students to complete the phonemic awareness course. There is no homework and there are no quizzes or tests. If a student has trouble understanding a video, she just repeats it. I recommend that very young children do one video a day or even part of a video a day. Older students might easily do more than one video a day. I don't recommend doing all the videos in one sitting because while the work itself is not difficult, it's important that students understand the concepts I'm teaching, and those concepts might take a little time to sink in. If you'd like to trial this course, subscribe to my mailing list to gain immediate access to the first 2 videos in the course. Subscribers receive only an occasional email, about once a month, and can unsubscribe at any time. Buy the course now, or subscribe, and you'll have immediate access. Your child can begin learning these essential skills today.